Hi, Jenni here, and last year I made a video where I went through the books I read in January 2024 because I liked starting my year with a monthly recap, but then I didn't film more of them because they don't feel like my thing. But I really like the idea of starting the year with one to show kind of like, okay, this is where I'm at the beginning of the year. By the 28th, on which I am filming, I have read 3 full books, and I have 3 books that I'm still in the middle of, and they are kind of longer projects. I will talk about that more. The reason why I only have 3 books read, which 3 books is still 3 books, a good amount. Let me check myself. Anyways, the reason why I have read 3 books is that I was diagnosed with pneumonia this month, and I still have it. Reading while having pneumonia, it's a bit challenging. I'll talk more about that later. But let's start with the 3 books that I did read this year. So the first book I read this year was Julie Leong's The Teller of Small Fortunes. I picked this up from Tallinn when I went to visit there in December, and I don't gravitate towards fantasy basically ever, but the cover was very enticing, and the back cover sounded like a really sweet, heartwarming story, so I thought that would be a great way to start my year of reading. The title kind of says what's this about. It's about Tao, who is the teller of small fortunes. She has left the town that she is from. If you can hear snow, lumiaura, that's because I live in northern Finland. Sorry about that. This tells the story of Tao, who is the teller of small fortunes, and she goes town to town telling small fortunes, not big ones. And she never stays in the same town for long. Tao is used to traveling alone, but on her travels she meets Kina, Silt and Mash. Silt and Mash are trying to find Mash's daughter, so the 3 of them join Tao as they try to find the daughter, and Tao tells fortunes and Kina bakes while they travel. It was a very sweet story, and I did like it, but fantasy just isn't for me. I feel like this was maybe meant for a little bit younger audience than myself. I am 28 now. It did have like slight interesting conversations about immigration and people's anti-immigrant attitudes, but like surface level. Not to give away too much of the spoiler, but the kind of the big conflict resolution, it was kind of disappointing. And my pet peeve in modern books is when the author tries to mimic Old English and then doesn't fully commit to it. Because this was mostly just written in modern English, but instead of because, the author uses for. And I don't like that. So yeah, I liked it. It was fine. But I'm not gonna start reading fantasy now. Joel likes fantasy, so I'm just giving him this book then. Then I read 2 memoirs. First one is Constance Wu's Making a Scene, a collection of personal essays where she reflects on her life so far and her career. I liked this. I thought it was very interesting. My favorite parts, or the parts that I got most out of, were the ones where she talked about her career, acting, how she viewed it, how she went from New York and then landed fresh off the boat, Crazy Rich Asians, and so on. I tried to keep the title Making a Scene in mind when I read through the essays, and most of them delivered. Most of them remembered this and brought it up. But then there were chapters that felt a bit too personal for me to learn about and felt a bit fillery. Like, for example, it was lovely to learn about how Constance Wu really likes bunnies, but I didn't need a whole essay of her telling how she got her pet bunny. But again, that's author's choice and I should respect it. This book did touch on sexual harassment and sexual assault that Constance Wu has faced. I thought the way she discussed those was, first of all, heartbreaking, but also a very important discussion to have, not just in Hollywood, but in our world overall. I did like this one. Yes. Okay, and then the third book that I managed to read, and this one I read partially when I was ill, was Bone Black by Bell Hooks, Memoirs of Girlhood. And this is another personal writing. Bell Hooks goes through moments in her childhood. She discusses how racism, segregation, faith, death, illness, sexuality, all those things are woven into these stories that she tells from her childhood. The chapters were quite short, so it was kind of easy to read through. They were only like a couple of pages long. It did take me quite long to get through this because I ended up sick, but I thought this was an amazing book and I highly recommend this one. I've read Ain't I a Woman from Bell Hooks before, but I really want to read more from her. And I think what I remember most from this book is kind of going through and seeing her journey, how she realized that reading and writing was her place, that while she felt very lonely and overlooked and out of place as a child, reading always gave her comfort and solace, and how she kind of realized that she wants to become a writer herself. Highly recommend this one if you are interested in memoirs or feminism overall. Okay, so this book I started reading last week, and it was a bit ambitious to try to think that I could finish this within the month of January. But either way, Anu Vähäaho, Niin kauan kuin voit rakastaa in English, As long as you can love. And this is based on Oulu, my home city, in the 1870s. The main character is Robert Stenmark, who sells wood and works in woodworking. He and his friend purchase an estate in Oulu. Robert Stenmark's mother was from Oulu and had once lived at that estate as a teacher for the family that lived there. So he rebuilds it and tries to find a connection to his mother, who has passed away, but also wants to learn who his real father is, because he does not know his biological father, but he was raised by his mother's husband, I'd say. Whilst doing all that, he meets Ida Anberg, who is a young woman in her 20s, very interested in supernatural and mythological things, and also meets Salome Jackson, who is a widower and lives in the neighbor of the estate that he bought in Oulu. Anu Vähäaho's first book was one of my favorite reads of last year. It was amazing, so I had high expectations for this one. It has been good, and I've loved reading about them. Of course, the first one is gonna be the best one. I had such a deep emotional connection to it. However, this has been really good. I'm about 200 pages in and it has 574 pages. Okay, so two of my longer reading projects are buddy reads. Okay, first off, Joel and I have been reading Jane Austen books together. We've read Pride and Prejudice, Emma, and Persuasion. So now we are reading Sense and Sensibility. We are reading it in Finnish. All the other ones we have read in English, mostly because we wanted to read it in the original language. However, with Persuasion, there were moments where we had some unclear moments because we didn't understand the Old English. So we thought that we would read this one in Finnish just so that we know everything that happens. I've read this one before and I love it very much. I wanted to read this specific translation. It's a new one from Kersti Juva. I'm pretty sure we would have finished reading Sense and Sensibility already had it not been for me becoming sick. But you know, I can't do anything about that. We're about almost halfway through now. And now another buddy read, which is like a huge accomplishment for me. And I'm sure we will get through it. Me and my friend Aure are reading Middlemarch together. Middlemarch by George Eliot. So Middlemarch is based on this fictional English town titled Middlemarch, and we meet plethora of characters of different people just trying to get through life, and there are discussions of science, society, class, faith, arts. One of the notable characters is Dorothea Brooke, who is an orphan and tries to navigate through that, But there are so many characters and I'm so invested in so many of them. I would say I'm most invested in Dorothea and also Fred Vinci, who is the son of the Vinci family. He's a carefree, a bit careless, but just very interesting as a character. I have started book number 4 and I'm at chapter 37. Every Sunday we have a video chat with Aure where we discuss what we think of the events that happened in each book. Our goal is to read 1 book per week, and it has really helped because I don't see it as this massive 900-page book. It feels much more approachable. And can I just say, the language is very easy to understand. I was so worried that I wouldn't understand a thing, but no, it's been fine. And as an author, George Eliot is really funny. Like, I've been kind of stunned by some of the things that the narrator has said, because it's very fun and entertaining. Alright, so those were the books that I've read in January and the books I'm in the middle of. Now, reading while having pneumonia. So I got sick on January 10th, and back then I didn't know that it was pneumonia, but I had a high fever and I coughed a lot. Very typical pneumonia symptoms. So I had to pause reading completely on the days that I basically had that high fever. But luckily I was at a very good point with middlemarch that taking a few days off of it was fine. Obviously with Sense and Sensibility, we don't really have a schedule, but we would be way further on if it hadn't been for pneumonia. And for a really long time, the only book that I read while being sick was Middlemarch. I just couldn't take on another book. Having pneumonia is really fucking hard, okay? So reading while constantly having the cough and having temperature, I just couldn't do it. I'm so happy that I'm better now, that I have more energy to read and just do everything. But yeah, having pneumonia kind of fucked up my whole life. And I'm just trying to collect the pieces now that I'm slowly getting better. I still have pneumonia, but it's slowly going away. I've taken a lot of antibiotics for that. So yeah, I don't know if that rambling made any sense to anyone. But yeah, I'm still happy with the 3 books that I did finish in January. What about you? What are you reading in January? Have you ever had pneumonia? Let me know in the comments below. If you are interested in more of my reading updates, follow me on Bookstagram at jenskosmos. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye!